On Friday, we were talking about helicopter parenting, and we were rushed because of what was going on with Hurricane Patricia. So we wanted to have our guest, Rusty Lozano. He is a licensed professional counselor, to talk about helicopter parenting. And I know Davis was excited to talk about this because Friday you seemed excited. So we wanted to have you on again today, Rusty. Thank you so much for joining us.
These Black Hawk helicopter parents?
Hey guys, how you doing?
We're doing good,
helicopter
thank you.
Parents or attack helicopter parents?
No, so we want to know, again, pretty much what we talked about Friday. What is helicopter parenting? We'll start with that.
Well, helicopter parenting is a parent who's overly involved in watching and overseeing the outcome of their activity in their child's life. You know, when they get in a little bit of trouble or they have some sort of consequence, then the parents will swoop in and facilitate and mediate the outcome for the child. And it happens in school. It happens out in the community if they get in trouble. It happens with making friends. And so I think that it's starting to kind of impede development a little bit. It's good and bad. And in some regards, I think it's positive for a parent to communicate and watch the things that happen in a child's life. But at the same time, the children aren't learning anything.
So if your kid gets picked up for weed, depending on the age, would you go down and make bail, or would you let him make bail, even though you're going to end up paying it anyway? Because they don't they don't take payouts at the bail bondsman.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, could be quasi-enabling if if your child never experienced any consequences for doing something like that. If they actually ended up getting arrested for having possession and they don't sit out their time and talk to the judge, but you go and you facilitate that process for them, what are they learning? Yeah. And they just end up doing it again.
Do you think helicopter parenting is probably the most popular form of parenting? Because I've heard of so many. I've heard of free-range parenting, helicopter parenting. There's drone parenting. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But yeah. I think the article, for example, says, is helicopter parenting ruining a generation of children? So do you think helicopter parenting is probably the most popular now?
I don't think it's the most popular, but I do think that it's a disturbing trend. It's enough of a trend to kind of, create a lot of insight into it. I mean, there's a lot of intelligent parenting out there that still goes on, and the way that we learn things, through trial and error and through observation and through influence. A lot of parents can actually really help their child to be well-rounded, and they develop a good personality, a good sense of direction and decision making. But there is a trend that is actually it's disabling that instinct to grow, thrive, and learn through your societal mistakes, if you will.
We're talking with Rusty Lozano. He is a licensed professional counselor, talking about helicopter parenting and if it's ruining a generation. Mr. Lozano, how long does helicopter parenting last? Is it until they reach the teenage years? Does it go past being a teenager, like in college?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can go to college and beyond. Even in my own practice, I've seen college-age kids who are struggling with. I know one in particular that came in and he's trying to go to med school, and his mom would call and say, well, he doesn't want to come to dinner with us. Can you talk to him? And and then he doesn't do well on a test and is not able to take responsibility for it and blames everything and everybody else. Even turns back on his own mom and says it's her fault somehow that the outcome of this test didn't actually turn out the way that he wanted. So there's a dependence. There's a lack of taking personal responsibility because somebody has always been there to do that, and you don't know what it feels like to fail. You don't know what it feels like to make these kinds of mistakes, and that's incredibly disappointing because
that's part of growing up, though.
It is part of growing up. I mean, I think that's you have to fail. You have to make mistakes. You have to not be counted in, and how else are you going to learn what you're capable of doing and what you're not capable of doing? You find your way through trial and error. But some kids have to go through the school of hard knocks. It's just the way that they learn.
What percentage of them have to learn that way, do you think?
What percentage of kids in our country?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that it's all socioeconomic based. I think that you're going to see a lot more of that in the higher echelon of households than you would in more lower echelon households where the parents aren't there. Yeah, I mean, I think that, if you think about it, there's if a parent has to work 9 to 5, and then they have like a sitter, taking care of the kids and making sure the homework is done, and then you come home at about 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and you're trying to play catch up for the day. You're there to feed your kids and making sure their homework is done. I mean, that's not. They're essentially having to learn a lot of skills on their own, and that's an overgeneralization of a particular type of socioeconomic form, but that's one that's actually very common in this country.
How does a parent know that they're being helicopter parents? Like, for example, if someone's in denial and they don't want to believe that they are, but they're doing this, what are the signs?
I think the signs of somebody who's a helicopter parent is that they're overly concerned or overly involved in their kid's life, and they don't like to see them suffer, and then they go in and do things aside from like just the Band-Aid type of support, like giving them a hug and telling them I love you. But they go in and actually try to, manipulate the outcome for their kids. So they'll go and roll up their sleeves and play their hand in trying to influence decisions and outcomes of decisions, whether it be for school, whether it be a homework assignment that wasn't turned in, or a grade that it was made on a test that's not like, the most ideal. That they go in and say, hey, well, there's something that was wrong with this circumstance, and my son did it, and I saw that. I mean, those times do come up. But when you find yourself kind of doing it overly often, that can be very problematic, and that can be a tell sign. And then if your child is not able to take personal responsibility, a lot of times that's an indication that there's probably been some helicopter parenting, because they never had to kind of take that responsibility in the past. And so when they say to their mom or dad, I didn't do it, it was your fault.
Yeah,
I asked
mom
you
and
to
dad.
help me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it turns back on them. That's a typical sign, but something that can be outgrown and certainly dealt with later on in life.
So
it's just going to be a lot. They're going to learn the lessons much later in life.
Mom and dad, if you are a helicopter parent, stop right now. Those are the final words for us here on 710 KURV. Rusty Lozano, thank you so much for joining us again. We really appreciate it. We learned a lot. Were you a helicopter parent, Davis?
I don't think so, but
I know my parents weren't. Thank you, Mom and Dad,
it's
for
easy
not
to say
being
you're
helicopter
not going to
parents.
be one until,
and then you are one. Like, don't finish your kids' homework, don't finish their puzzles. Anyway, all that stuff. This is The Drive Home on 710 KURV.